Well, welcome along to Donington Park, everybody. We've got our second of 3 races this weekend coming up for you for the Finecut Radical UK Championship. If you didn't join us yesterday, well, the first question will be, why not? Because we saw some fantastic racing. In particular, I would say, the battle that was going on between John McLeod and Andy Lowe for the final podium spot, and even more so, who was going to come home first in the Fangio Trophy for those drivers that are aged over 50 at the beginning of the season. But we've got our second race, our second sprint race coming up for you. The pit stop race, the longer 50-minute race, will take place later on today. Let me guide you through the grid then, the way that they line up then for this second race of the championship season. Marcus Littlewood, the reigning Radical SR1 champion, lines up on pole position, and alongside is Hamish Forrest, who is an ex-factory karting driver. Row 2 of the grid is going to be Rachel Robertson. She's been karting just for a couple of years, first season in car racing, alongside his man with 15 years radical experience now, John McLeod, is there on the second row of the grid. Row 3 of the grid, it's Jack Yang, the driver who's based out in America and races not just in the UK but in the North American Championship as well as the Gulf Championship. He's got Andy Lowe, who's in his 5th year of Radical racing, that sits alongside, and then it's Alex Fisher, a new man to the Radical grid for this season. He has got for company Natalie Neumann, who's got lots of experience in autocross but less so, the Luxembourg-based driver, in Radicals. Then we move on to the final row of the grid, which is Carla Villanueva, who is Mexican, and James Pinkerton, who is the head of design and development for Radical. He will be starting off the back of the grid. I think what he'll do is what he did yesterday. He doesn't want to get involved in the championship battle. He works for Radical. He's the head of design and development. He'll probably, when the lights go out, actually come down the pit lane and do a pit lane start. I think is the way it will work for him in his largely white and red car with those green flashes to it that you can see towards the tail end of the field. So the Hyundai safety car bringing them around the circuit in advance of this 20-minute race. It was a 25-minute race we had yesterday. It actually finished slightly earlier than was intended yesterday because it was the last race on the timetable yesterday, and we were still, of course, at that point on what was Greenwich Mean Time. We were struggling for light. That won't be the case today. It's reasonably warm out there, but it's still very blustery, as it was yesterday, so it does feel rather chilly. It feels more autumnal than spring-like. But hopefully we'll have a good race for this one. And let's wait and see as to what happens. Marcus Littlewood pretty much had it all his own way yesterday as he came home to win by what was 8.4 seconds in the end. So we've got 20 minutes on the clock. We've got red lights on the Grand Prix. We've got the safety car going around again. And I did think maybe there was one car that was missing. So it is a couple of cars that haven't quite made it. Now the number 33 has dropped back, which is Carla Villanueva. So yeah, not quite sure why we got the cars that hadn't quite fully caught the pack, but because it wasn't fully caught back, Natalie Neumann also struggling. James Pinkerton comes down the pit lane as expected, but I thought there were a couple of cars missing as the cars were coming in towards Goddard. So those two Formula One cars just need to catch up the pack a little bit. And James Pinkerton, who was hoping for a pit lane start, is being waved back out by the marshals, but he's saying, no, I want to start from the pit lane. I'm in the development car. I'm not scoring championship points. Let's move on. Good to see the two Formula One cars at the back of the grid. They are the two cars that run in the team's championship, so they're the only cars that are shared. Natalie Neumann drives one of them, say Luxembourg-based driver. She finished 8th in the Nations Cup qualifiers. And if you're wondering what the Nations Cup's qualifiers are, just to tell you a little bit about that, the inaugural Formula One Nations Cup takes place this May. It's taking place in the Middle East, so it's in Dubai, in the United Arab Emirates. 38 women from 25 countries recently qualified at the qualifiers event in Dubai. That was back in December, and they gained full entry to the Nations Cup event that's out there. So Natalie Neumann, one of those, and Carla Villanueva, who is representing Mexico here, is another driver that's involved with the Nations Cup as well. She actually recently drove the safety car out at the Formula E event in Mexico City as well, did Carla Villanueva. And she'll be sharing the car in the pit stop race later on today with her co-driver in the number 33 car, which is going to be Alexia Barrett, former European karting champion Alexia, whereas Natalie Neumann will be sharing it with Flame Ricola. So those are the two cars that are in the team's championship that we've got entered for this weekend. Right, lights are out on the safety car this time through, so hopefully we can get things fully underway. 20-minute race. The clock has remained at 20 minutes, so we've not had any time clicking down because of this extra formation lap that we needed. So light is not an issue for these cars today. It very much was yesterday. The checkered flag came out, I think it was about a minute and a half early, and that's largely because we pretty much got to sunset and we're almost heading towards dusk. Thankfully the Radicals have lights at front and rear, so we were able to run them through until we had very little daylight left, and then I think the clerk of the course decided that we're getting to the point where there was not a great deal of light, so the checkered flag came out just slightly early. So let's have another go then. Round 2 of the Finecut Radical UK Championship about to get underway. Marcus Littlewood on the left of your screen on pole position. Hamish Forrest sits alongside, who had problems at the very first corner in yesterday's race. Lights go out, and it's not a bad start from Marcus Littlewood, who I think has just about got his nose ahead, unless Hamish Forrest can try around the outside, but he decides not to. Then John McLeod tucks through into what will be 3rd position and 4th place at the moment. I think that's Rachel Robertson that's there in 4th place, who's got a handsful of the orange car of Andy Lowe, who's 5th, and that will be Jack Yang that's there in 6th place at the moment as they tumble down towards the old hairpin for the first time, still trying to build some temperature in their control Hankook tyres. James Pinkerton in the development car, say head of design and development at Radical, not involved in the championship scoring, leaves a nice big gap. He doesn't want to get involved in the championship squabble, so he leaves the pit lane now, and we'll just utilise this almost as a test session really for things that they want to try out on that car. The rest of the pack in the meantime is round through Coppice Corner, and it does look as though possibly Hamish Forrest and Rachel Robertson now are very much together, squabbling over what will be 3rd and 4th position. So through they go. Rachel Robertson has managed to get herself through and ahead of Hamish Forrest, who might have started on the front row of the grid, but has now dropped down to 4th position by the look of things. John McLeod's gone ahead, Rachel Robertson's gone ahead. Andy Lowe also looking to see whether he might be able to squeeze his way through, and then the white and the red and the green car of Jack Yang not that far away either. So up towards the completion of the first lap of the race. Jack Yang finished 2nd in yesterday's race, so he's got a bit of work to do to first of all catch the car ahead of him, which will be the orange machine in the hands of Andy Lowe. Hamish Forrest having another little nibble, see if he can retake the place back from Rachel Robertson, but that's not quite the case. So Rachel, Scottish woman with the Scottish Saltire on the end plates of the rear wing, continues in what is 3rd place. Hamish Forrest sitting there in 4th. So he had a difficult race yesterday, was pitched into a spin at Redgate Corner and dropped into the gravel. That brought about a very, very short safety car period in yesterday's race, whilst the marshals gave him a shove to get him out of the gravel, but it did drop him off the lead lap, unfortunately, for which he was understandably unable to recover from. Progress also being made through the order for Natalie Neumann from Luxembourg. She's managed to go through and ahead of Alex Fisher, who, say, is new to the Radical grid for this season. Alex in the green car with a silver stripe down the centre. That's the ex-Adrian Hallmark car that was raced in this championship in previous years. Adrian was the former head of Bentley, has now moved over to be the CEO of Aston Martin. Now John McLeod for 2nd place is coming under a bit of pressure here down in towards the Melbourne hairpin, and the pressure is coming from 3 cars really. It's coming from Rachel Robertson, it's coming from Hamish Forrest, it's coming from Andy Lowe. So the 2 Weir Tools supported machines looking to try and gain a place, whilst also having to defend from the orange car of Andy Lowe, another driver who over the winter has spent a chunk of time keeping himself match fit as such, and has been racing out in the Radical Gulf Cup. Side by side for the 2 teammates heading round through Redgate Corner. They're still side by side as they head on towards the top of Hollywood, and as they come down through the Craner curves, Hamish Forrest has got himself back ahead of Rachel Robertson. Lost out a few laps ago, but has finally managed to get the job done. We've had a spin, I'm afraid, for Carla Villanueva, and that's on the inside of Goddard's Corner, where the car has skittered onto the infield and is positioned on the grass. Can only see the tail end of the car. Hopefully the front end of it hasn't made contact with the concrete barriers that would be there, and if that's the case, she can then just hook a reverse gear and carry on in the race if she's bumped into the barriers. And off, and that is Andy Lowe all through the gravel trap at Coppice Corner. He's going to be able to dig himself back out onto the circuit, but that was a very gravelly moment from Andy Lowe. Car just washed wide on him as he turned into the first apex. It's a blind entry to that first apex at Coppice Corner, so you commit to it without seeing the apex, and maybe he didn't quite get the turn-in point there, or ran a little bit wide and onto the dust. And now we might also have another change further up through the order. John McLeod now has lost out on second position because there's been fantastic resurgence all of a sudden from the number 95 car of Hamish Forrest. Ex-factory karting driver is now into second place. Now, it does look as though finally Carla Villanueva is going to get her radical pointing in the right direction. It's taken her a while to do so, but it's very difficult to try and see exactly what's coming at you. She'd probably have waited for what she thought would be a gap in the traffic and then hook a reverse, because otherwise you're reversing into oncoming cars and you just couldn't do anything about it because you wouldn't see. And I think we might just be able to get a replay. Yeah, she loses it going in towards Goddard's. The car skitters onto the grass. She gathers it up, and then I think maybe Len had a subsequent second spin on the exit of the corner, but I think the car has continued. If it's got damage, it's only very light damage, which allows her to get back out onto circuit and gain some more experience in these cars. So 14.5 minutes to go. Last time through, Marcus Littlewood set the fastest lap of the race, 1:31.383. He was down into the 1 minute 30s yesterday, 1 minute 30.1, so he's still about 1.2 seconds shy of yesterday's fastest lap. Now, for third place, John McLeod, of course, lost out to Hamish Forrest on second place a lap or so ago. Well, he's now falling away ever more and is beginning to be brought into the clutches of Rachel Robertson, who has also now got Jack Yang with her, not too far away. So this is a battle for third, for fourth and for fifth. John McLeod still continues, just to confirm, to lead the Fangio category, which is for drives that are aged 50 and over at the beginning of the calendar year. And he's got a very good lead in that as a result of Andy Lowe's gravelly moment up at Coppice Corner. So through comes third, fourth and fifth over the start-finish line together. Andy Lowe sits there in 6th place. Alex Fisher is in 7th place. Natalie Neumann is 8th place. James Pinkerton, after his pit lane start in the development car, is 9th. And poor old Carla Villanueva, after her spin and struggling to find a gap in the traffic and get visibility to know when it was safe to reverse, is down in 10th place at the moment, and of course is off the lead lap. So through the old hairpin, John McLeod trying to maintain the gap between himself and Rachel Robertson. Over the start-finish line comes James Pinkerton. So James is a very successful driver. He's a 2-times Radical champion himself, is James Pinkerton. And so this weekend just running the development car as Radical try new things with the SR3 XXR. He's in 8th place. The number 51 car, Natalie Neumann, there in 9th place. So she'll be looking forward to heading out to Dubai in May to take part in the Nations Cup. Now Rachel Robertson getting ever closer under braking at the Melbourne hairpin to the coattails of John McLeod. Rachel still with a novice cross on the back of her car. You can just see it down the centre line of the car from the rear. The yellow square with the black diagonal cross through it, meaning that she's not as yet had 6 signatures on her racing licence. So it just gives everybody else behind that indication that it's a less experienced driver that you're heading up towards. But, well, experience counts for nothing because John McLeod's got 15 years of it. Rachel Robertson far less so in terms of car racing, but the two of them are absolutely matched for pace as they still continue to fight over what is the final podium spot. We saw a great race yesterday for the final podium spot with John McLeod finishing in 3rd place just ahead of Andy Lowe. Well, John McLeod is going to have another busy race this time through if he wants his 2nd podium of the weekend, because Rachel Robertson at the moment has other ideas about that. And if they slow each other up fighting over it, don't rule out the fact that Jack Yang, who's not that far away, might be able to gain some advantage. Into the pits, I'm afraid, comes Carla Villanueva. Oh, it's Carla Villanueva. So maybe all is not well with Villanueva's car. Team just chatting to her. Hopefully it'll just be a case of investigating a few things and send her back out. And in the meantime, the titanic battle for 3rd and 4th continues through the Fogarty S's, and I think they are now slowing each other up because Jack Yang was 1.1 seconds back from the pair ahead at the beginning of this lap as Rachel Robertson prizes the door open on John McLeod, brakes as late as she can. John McLeod almost tries to get the undercut on the way out. The problem at the old hairpin is you get the undercut on the way out, but then you're on the outside line when you head up towards Goddard's. But John McLeod has got the job done and briefly lost third place, only to retake it again by the time they get to the next corner. And all of a sudden, Jack Yang, who on the start of the previous lap was 1.1 seconds adrift of the rest of those ahead of him, is now just 0.4 of a second adrift of them. So it's 3 cars now fighting over first, second and third. And as for the fastest lap of the race, well, that is no longer with our race leader either. That has now gone in the direction of the number 95 car of Hamish Forrest, who's just posted a 1 minute 30.193, and that is just 40 thousandths of a second shy of Marcus Littlewood's fastest lap from yesterday. So 10 minutes to go. John McLeod feeling the pinch from Rachel Robertson. Jack Yang poised and ready to pounce should the two ahead cause each other strife. Up towards Coppice Corner, sunshine glinting. There is the fastest lap car. That is Hamish Forrest, say last time through that 1 minute 30.193, and that will net him an extra single championship point for this race. Come the longer 50-minute race later on today, it's double points in reality, and not just in terms of championship scoring, that also includes fastest laps as well. You get double points for that. So for this one it's 40 points for the win, 35 for second, 30 for third. You tot up all of the championship scores over all of the rounds, and then you drop your worst 2 is the way it works in terms of the maths at the end of the season for the Radical UK Championship, supported by Finecut, the new title sponsors for this year. So James Littlewood completes the lap. He's got 4.5 second gap between himself and Hamish Forrest for second place. Last time through, Hamish Forrest was 0.4 of a second quicker, so again that's another one to keep an eye on. 4.1 seconds is the gap from first to second, but it's heading in the right direction as far as Hamish Forrest is concerned. John McLeod is still just managing to keep at arm's length the aspirations of Rachel Robertson. Equally as much, she's got enough daylight between herself and Jack Yang at the wheel of the number 21 car, who runs in 5th place, so as not to worry. So they're close to each other, but not quite close enough to muster an overtake as yet. Coppice Corner isn't an ideal overtaking opportunity. Rachel Robertson is too far back anyway. You can't really do a great deal at Coppice unless the car is slow coming out of McLean's. The best bet for Rachel will be sit in the slipstream down the straight that they're coming to, see whether she could draw herself alongside on the run in towards the Fogarty S's, but if not, get a good exit out of the Fogarty S's and see what you can do on the brakes in towards the Melbourne hairpin. So see the nose of both cars dip at exactly the same time, carry the momentum coming out of the corner, and if you're close enough there's half a chance on the brakes at the Melbourne hairpin. But she's too far back again this time through, Rachel Robertson. She knows that, so she just sits behind the car ahead. And now for for John McLeod I should say, the next thing is to deal with the traffic that's just ahead, which is Carla Villanueva. So the Mexican moves out of harm's way. Sensible driving from Carla Villanueva allows John McLeod to go through. Will shortly allow Rachel Robertson to go through, but Rachel Robertson also needs to keep an eye on what Jack Yang is doing, because I think Jack Yang might take the opportunity to squeeze his way through. No, he can't make it, and he's going to have to wait until the exit of Redgate Corner even to deal with the slower traffic as well. So he's now briefly been delayed and is now going to have to work overtime to try and catch the cars again that he's lost out to whilst lapping Carla Villanueva, who I think has now gone 2 laps down as a result of the spin. 7 minutes of the race still to go. Marcus Littlewood, who was 4.1 seconds up the road from Hamish Forrest, is now 4.7 seconds up the road, so he has upped his pace a little bit. Last time through, the race leader just set his best individual lap of the race so far. He's also set an absolute best middle sector of this lap, Marcus Littlewood, so it may well have been that the news came over the team radio to him to say, right, push, 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 you're getting caught, just maintain that gap a little bit, up your pace. And it could be that if Marcus Littlewood can knit together the 3rd sector, he could potentially be on for a new fastest lap of the race this time through. We'll have to wait and see. 3rd, 4th, 5th, back through the Melbourne hairpin, still as they were, John McLeod, Rachel Robertson, Jack Yang. It was a new fastest lap for Marcus Littlewood as well. I thought it might be, but it didn't last long, because then Hamish Forrest comes over the start-finish line and goes a shade quicker. That's the fastest lap of the weekend we've had so far that's just come in from the second place Hamish Forrest. 1 minute 29.889 is the fastest racing lap in the 2 races that we've had so far. And the gap is 4.5 seconds, so it's still net gain to Marcus Littlewood. It went from 4.1 to 4.7, now back to 4.5. So even with the new fastest lap, the number 95 car is a little bit further away from race leader Marcus Littlewood than he was a few laps ago. So Littlewood heads up towards Coppice. Through McLean's goes Hamish Forrest. John McLeod and co are the best part of 10 seconds behind in the squabble for 3rd, 4th and 5th place, with still John McLeod ahead of Rachel Robertson and Jack Yang. And Andy Lowe is still in 6th place. In 7th place, Alex Fisher now is under pressure from the development car of James Pinkerton, who just made sure that he didn't try and sneak through on what was too tight a overtake at Redgate Corner. He'll wait for another opportunity, and it might come on the run up towards McLean's Corner, where James Pinkerton might have the momentum to go through. Not through Schwantz he won't, and I don't think he'll do anything either to Alex Fisher as they head through McLean's Corner in a car which is, say, non-championship point scoring, I think, this weekend, the development car. And the last thing James will want to do is trip over a customer, and particularly a new customer, Alex Fisher, who's new to the championship, as we say, in the ex-Adrian Hallmark car. 4.5 minutes remain. This is the fight for 7th and 8th place, heading through the Melbourne hairpin. At Redgate Corner is the trio of cars still running in 3rd, 4th and 5th position, and Rachel Robertson has not as yet been able to get herself as close to John McLeod as she was earlier on in the race. She's just that little bit, an extra 2 car lengths maybe further back than where she was. Equally, Jack Yang in 5th place can't quite get back to the coattails of Rachel Robertson following the time that he lost whilst they were lapping the traffic a few laps ago. So again, it's that difficult area where they're close but not close enough. And of course, the closer you get, then the more then the dirty air comes off the back of the car ahead of you and allows your car to not quite handle as good as otherwise it would in a clean airflow. So down the exhibition straight, Rachel Robertson will be picking up a bit of a tow from John McLeod as they head in towards the braking area for the Fogarty S's. Take as much curb as you dare through there, and then just make sure you hit your braking marks where they need to be at the old hairpin. It's downhill into the old hairpin, very easy to outbrake yourself. Rachel takes a late apex to try and get on the power and straighten up the exit in the efforts to see if she can close the gap on the car ahead. John McLeod will just utilise all of that 15 years of experience he's got racing radicals to make sure that he positions the car where he needs to be and tries to, first of all, keep that gap where he wants it to be with 3 minutes to go. Probably got this lap and certainly one more, if not possibly 2 more. I think it'll be 2 more thereafter. So I think they'll be on the penultimate lap next time through. Now our race leader, Marcus Littlewood, is 4.4 seconds up the road, but has just set an absolute best first sector. Marcus Littlewood set his best individual lap of the race last time through. He did a 1 minute 29.972, so that's the first time Marcus Littlewood has been in the 129s in either race so far this weekend. Absolute best first sector, gave a little bit of time away in the middle sector compared to what he's previously done, but if he can again stitch together a good third sector, this could be another fastest lap of the race, you know, very late on when the Hankook tyres have got a little bit more wear on them, but he's still got the pace at the wheel of the RSR entered machine. So up towards the braking area for Goddard's. It's taking him 1 minute and 30 thereabouts to do with the lap, so he will be on to his penultimate lap of the race this time through. Is it going to be a new fastest lap of the race? 1 minute 29.9. No, that was a 1 minute 30.0, so good consistent lapping from him. Hamish Forrest comes through and also does a 1 minute 30.0, so they lap to within, what's that, 29 thousandths of a second of each other in terms of lap times that time through. So very difficult to tell there's been any net gain from one or the other. Visually looking at the two cars, they look identically the same distance apart as they head down through the old hairpin for what will be the penultimate time this time through. Marcus Littlewood claimed victory in yesterday's race by 8.4 seconds from Jack Yang. Well, it's going to be certainly a double victory is looking strong for him, albeit the lead margin might not be quite as good. For Hamish Forrest, he'll be delighted with the way that things have gone for him in this race, because, as I say, he was involved in an incident at turn 1 yesterday on the very first lap, which pitched him into the gravel trap and cost him time. So he ultimately was classified down in 9th place. So it's a good way to bounce back in the second race of the weekend, and that will give him good confidence heading into what will be the pit stop race. We've had a shuffle, haven't we? Jack Yang has managed to squeeze his way through and past Rachel Robertson on the previous lap. Didn't quite see where that happened, but that's been a change now. Jack Yang up into 4th place, and now setting his sights with a lap to go on seeing if he can at least close the gap a little bit on John McLeod. So out of the Melbourne hairpin, up towards Goddard's. So John has been a familiar face in the UK Championship for a good number of years. We've seen John McLeod racing out in the Gulf Radical Championship in the past. So Jack Yang, again, a regular on the grid for the last few years in the UK, but has also raced in the North America Cup and also in the Middle East as well. Here's a replay of what happened to Rachel Robertson. Jack Yang on the brakes heading in towards the Melbourne hairpin. Rachel Robertson didn't brake, I didn't think, too early, but Jack Yang just was so confident on the brakes and was able to ease his way through and past, with Rachel Robertson giving him the room once he was alongside. So simple overtake for Jack Yang. He'll be more than pleased that that gains him another place and picks up potentially an extra 3 championship points for that, because it's 24 points if you're 4th, it's 27 points if you finish in 3rd place. But for Marcus Littlewood, it looks as though he's on course for another 40 championship points, which is what you'll get for the win. It might be double points for the pit stop race later on, but that's all to come later on today at around about 4 o'clock. For now, it looks as though it's a double bit victory for the reigning Radical SR1 Cup champion Marcus Littlewood. Heads up towards Goddard's corner for the final time, and he's going to pick up top honours in round 2 of the 2025 Finecut Radical Cup UK Championship. Marcus Littlewood claims the win. It's going to be Hamish Forrest that finishes in 2nd position and sets the fastest lap on the very last lap of the race with a 1 minute 29.715. So he threw everything at that to see what he could do. He'll pick up the extra championship points. John McLeod is just about going to hang on to 3rd place in what was another busy race for him, but he's got Jack Yang shadowing him as they come over the start finish line. But it's McLeod that's there in 3rd place. Jack Yang finishes in 4th place. 5th will go the way of Rachel Robertson, and it should be Andy Lowe in 6th position. So John McLeod 3rd place will also pick up top honours in the Fangio Trophy as well. Up towards the finish line comes Natalie Neumann. Through comes Andy Lowe. Say he had his moment, didn't he, up at Coppice Corner. So Andy Lowe finishes in 6th place. Natalie Neumann is through but is off the lead lap, so she'll finish in 9th place. The next car that will come through will be 7th, which will be James Pinkerton. Here he comes now from the pit lane start to finish in 7th place in the Radical factory car. The Radical employee Alex Fisher finishes in 8th place, and I think there's just one more car to take the checkered flag, which will be Carla Villanueva to take the checkered flag, and then that should be the last of the cars through them. But for Marcus Littlewood, perfect start to the championship season, surely for him. Having claimed the maximum points yesterday, he qualified on pole position yesterday. He set the fastest lap of the race. He claimed the win as Carla Villanueva comes over the start-finish line. And for today, again, started on pole position, claims the win, but didn't get the fastest lap. That did go on the very final lap to Hamish Forrest, who sets the fastest lap so far this weekend. Marcus Littlewood then, to confirm the results, claims the win from Hamish Forrest in 2nd place, who was about 4.5 seconds adrift in the end. John McLeod finishes third, but also claims top honours in the Fangio Trophy. Jack Yang was 4th, ahead of Rachel Robertson 5th, and Andy Lowe was 6th and finishes 2nd in the Fangio Trophy. The development car in the hands of Radical employee James Pinkerton finishes in 7th place. Alex Fisher, new to the championship, was there in 8th place, and it was our 2 representatives from Formula Woman, Natalie Neumann and Carla Villanueva, that finished in 9th and 10th places respectively. We've got a further race coming up for you later on today in the Finecut Radical Cup UK Championship. That will come to you here from Donington Park at around about 4 o'clock this afternoon. Remember, it's a 50-minute race. There's a mandatory pit stop in the middle of it as well. Hopefully you can join us at 4 o'clock. So for the moment, we'll say goodbye.